This is Rock and Roll English. Real people, real English. Here's your host, Martin Johnston.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English, a bonus episode. Oh yeah baby, it's Thursday. Normally there are no episodes on Thursdays, but this Thursday there's an episode. Which is why I suppose it's a bonus episode. And in today's show, I speak to AJ from Effortless English. I really enjoyed this conversation as I learnt some stuff about Japanese culture, which is where AJ lives. But I also learnt some other stuff about teaching English because AJ is a teacher with a lot of experience. He mentioned some things I had never thought about. So here is the conversation. Happy listening. So, hello AJ and welcome to Rock and Roll English.
Hey, thank you.
So, thanks again for taking the time to come on the show. You've got a very interesting profile that I would like you to sort of tell us about a bit. So, first of all, you live in Japan, is that right?
That's correct, yes. I live in Osaka, Japan at the moment.
Ah, very nice. And how long have you lived there?
Oh, let's see. It's been about a year now, just under a year.
Oh, right. Okay. So I thought you'd lived there for longer for some reason. And what were you doing before? Where were you before?
Kind of nomadic. I was we were in San Francisco for a while. Short time in Hawaii. Kyoto, nice. Japan for a little short time. So yeah, kind of move around a lot.
Oh, wow. Very nice. And where are you from originally then?
Originally from Georgia in the United States, the southeastern part of the United States.
Okay, fantastic. Obviously, you're the creator of Effortless English. I've had a look at that. It looks very interesting. So why don't you tell us a bit about it? You've obviously got a book, for example, a podcast.
Sure. The idea and the name, Effortless English. Actually, I wanted to name it Effortless Effort, right? Because this is the idea. The idea behind it is that... it's not to be lazy or anything, because some people hear effortless and they think, oh, I don't have to do anything. That's not true. It is more the idea of that the effort is so enjoyable, so interesting that it doesn't feel like effort. So, you may be listening to English 2-3 hours a day or something, but you do it in such a way that you're having a great time. So it doesn't feel like effort. It feels effortless.
Oh, right. Very interesting concept, actually. It's kind of what I try to do here on Rock and Roll English. Try and make it a little bit more interesting than the usual sort of textbook stuff that you often hear. So exactly like you say, so people don't think, oh, God, I have to listen to some English now, to make it effortless, as you say.
Yes, indeed. Exactly. So listening to your podcast, so that's just enjoyable. People can just, pop that on, go for a walk, and in many ways, they might not even feel like they're, learning English or studying English or practicing English. It's just they're listening to an interesting conversation or something, and yet they are improving their English.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I always tell my students, to actually try and make English part of their daily lives instead of just, you have to study for 20 minutes a day, something like that, to make it actually part of your life so you don't actually look at it as, oh, God, I've got to study English and things like this.
Yes, exactly. I mean, so much of it is just emotional. When I used to teach in schools and teach classes, and for a long time I worked on my teaching techniques and the methods and the kind of lessons, and then I hit a point where I realized that, wow, a lot of it is just emotional. A lot of it is they get tired, or they get bored, or they're stressed, or for various emotional reasons, people quit or they don't put in the amount of time and concentration that they need because of that. So I really started focusing more then on that side of it as well, because it's so important.
Sure, absolutely. In fact, I had never looked at it like that, and you're absolutely right. There's so much is emotional. I've had students before, certainly at the school where I work, and they just sort of arrive at a point and they just say, okay, that's it now. Because as you said, they're just tired and bored. So yeah, helping students with like the emotional side is actually very interesting. So you said obviously you were teaching, well, you are teaching. How long have you been teaching for?
Let's see. Wow. Long time. My first job teaching was 1996. So it's like, 22 years doing this. So pretty long time.
Wow. So certainly someone that knows what they're talking about. So that's what we love to have on the podcast. People exactly like you that can share some sort of tips and stuff with us about how we can improve our English. I mean, I can improve my English as well, obviously. Everyone can always improve, but certainly for the listeners. So you've obviously got a book called Effortless English, and where you speak about secrets of or techniques maybe to learn English. Obviously, we don't want you to tell us all of them, but if you could just share maybe one or two.
Sure. And the book actually talks about that split, those kind of two general things or two general concepts to think about are, on the one hand, the mental, the emotional part, the motivational part, and then on the other side is just, the methods of learning. And on the methods of learning, I very much favor, I don't know, you could call it a natural approach, but for people who are, say, beginners or intermediate, to focus a lot on listening first.
Sure.
Listen, and really getting that input and in an understandable way, in an enjoyable way, kind of mimicking, not exactly like babies or children, but mimicking the sort of process that they go through. And instead of, in schools, they often reverse it, where the beginning is focused on lots of reading, lots of analysis of grammar and memorization of various rules and lists of vocab. And it's kind of sort of very unnatural. It's really the opposite.
Yeah, I agree. And there,
there
are many sort of speaking exercises when it's just vocalizing grammar instead of actually trying to take part in a normal conversation. It's just basically vocalizing the grammar that you've been studying for the last hour.
Exactly. And seeing that's part too where it comes in, where it really starts, I think, to kill the enjoyment and the motivation, because you're, like you said, you're vocalizing grammar, but there's no meaning behind it. It's not important to you. It's not interesting to the student at all. And so pretty quickly, I think for most students, it just sort of becomes this what feels like a meaningless exercise.
Sure. So going back to the emotional side, then, how do you help people with that? What do you advise students to do?
At the very simplest level, I sometimes do some crazy things, but the big part of it is I really want to link this idea of it's sort of a basic technique of even advertisers use this, actually, marketers, of where you're going to link English, the process of learning English, speaking English, hearing English, to strong, powerful emotions such as excitement and enthusiasm. And it's as simple as, every time you listen to English, before you do it, to put yourself into that emotional state. And an easy way to do it, for example, you could just play some energetic music, you could dance around, you can do things with your body like smile, put your shoulders back, whatever. You can go really crazy and scream and jump around, but just get yourself feeling fantastic. Boom, turn it off. That takes about 20 seconds, and then turn on your English audio or whatever you're going to do, and try to maintain that feeling, that really strong positive emotion as you're listening to English or as you're speaking English and practicing it. And through repetition, you can actually kind of program yourself to feel strong, excited, confident whenever you hear or use English. It's a process, but it does work.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And this is one way I try to help my students feel more confident about their speaking.
No, I really like it. I've obviously never heard that before, but I really like it. Obviously open to all techniques, and I can imagine that actually working. Yeah, I really like the idea behind that. I'm obviously still learning Italian, so I'm actually going to try this with Italian. The only thing I'm worried about is, so before a conversation, if I have to, if I'm speaking to someone, jump around. How do you?
So yeah, good point. There is another little trick you can do. It's called anchoring. Okay. But what you do is, as you do that whole same process I just described. Shout, jump around, go crazy. And right as you're feeling that kind of peak emotion, you could just do something very subtle, but some like very unique gesture. For example, at your side, you could drop your arm to your side and just squeeze your fist. Right? And then you do it every single time. And so just as you're connecting English to this excited, good feeling, you will start to connect that gesture or that motion or that action. Sure. The physical sensation of it will also get linked to this feeling, to the point where eventually, if you just drop your arm and you squeeze your fist hard, you'll feel a little jolt of positive, emotion, a little jolt of positive energy.
And I've heard of this technique actually,
Yep.
in a book I read, but I'd never thought of associating it to like language learning. So it's very, very interesting actually. So obviously, thanks for sharing that with us.
Oh yeah, sure. So it is a great thing you can do. Sometimes I teach my students, try to help them with public speaking or job interviews in English. And it's the same thing, right? Because in all those situations, actually, the fear, the embarrassment, the nervousness gets even worse if you're having.
Sure, absolutely.
And so it's the same technique. I mean, I use this technique for public speaking. I used to be terrified of talking to groups. And so this is what I would do before. Anytime I'd go speak to a group, I have my own little gestures that I do. And, it works. It really does work.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again for sharing that. So moving to sort of podcasts now. Obviously on your podcast, you give motivation tips, language learning tips, many other things. But something I really like is I saw you do a kind of book club where at the moment you're looking at the book Animal Farm by George Orwell. So tell us a bit more about that.
Just finished that. Yeah, I started trying to think of some other things to do, and we were always on my Twitter. People are discussing what books they're reading, and I thought, we could do an online book club. We'll just go through it chapter by chapter, pick a book, and everybody. The idea is everyone tries to read the chapter themselves the week before.
Okay.
And yeah, so, sometimes for some people it's quite difficult, and others it's easier. Then during the podcast, I will just go through the chapter and I'll summarize. I'll try to teach some of the vocabulary, and then we'll have a discussion about, sort of the meaning and the ideas of the chapter.
Yeah, the discussion you then do online on Facebook, is that right?
Yeah, we'll do on Facebook or on YouTube Live.
Okay, yeah. Now that's really interesting. Is this the first book you've done it for, Animal Farm?
Yeah, Animal Farm was the first, and we just finished that one. We're going to do a non-fiction one next. So I let everyone vote. They wanted to do Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I guess my fans want to learn about money.
No, everyone does. Everyone wants to learn about money.
All right, sure. Let's do it.
Animal Farm, though, that's actually one of my favourite books. That was a great first choice.
It's fantastic. There's so much there,
Yeah, absolutely.
Really a lot of deep meaning, and we had some great discussions. And, the cool thing about that is that everybody said, this sounds like my country. It doesn't matter if they were from a communist country or from, the United States, or from, living in the United States or in Europe, or everyone. This is just like my country. Like, yeah, well, these techniques are now used everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also I noticed you have a pronunciation course. So tell us just one thing how you sort of teach people on that.
Sure. I kind of like this technique of shadowing, which I did not develop. I can't remember the guy's name who sort of made that popular. But anyway, it's the thing where you listen to an audio. So let's say, and then you listen to it in your headphones, and then as you listen to it, you also try to speak along with the audio.
Yeah, I told my audience about that recently, actually. Well, the paid members for my website, because I was doing that for a podcast in Italian, and I found that so useful. But I hadn't even read that. I just started doing it, and I found it really, really useful. So I'm actually pleased that someone has actually. This is a real technique.
It is. It's called shadowing, and it's a professor one of these guys who speaks like 15 languages or something. This is his sort of main technique that he uses to learn languages, and it's one of the things I use for pronunciation. Especially helps with fluency, just getting used to getting those words out. And
sure,
that's the first hard part of it. Is just getting all those phrases and sentences out sort of nonstop, and then from there you can start to refine specific sounds and things. But
sure. The only problem I had with that is when I'm in public and I'm sort of talking to myself.
Yeah. I did it. I studied Spanish for a little bit. I did the Camino de Santiago. It's like that 1 month walk. And so I would do this while walking. But when we'd get outside the cities, so we'd be out in the countryside, I'd be walking along and I'd be really loudly, just talking along in Spanish to the audio. It's really good if you can do it, outdoors, away from people, or with a closed door.
Sure. Well, I was actually on a train the last time I was doing it, and there was someone sitting right in front of me. But I was just sort of, I was mainly speaking in my head, but sort of mumbling the words every now and again. But yeah, these are the things we have to do if we want to learn languages. I noticed as well you speak a lot about Fluent in 6 months. Is that a course you offer?
No, actually, that was this was a recent sort of debate we've had. Among people are always asking me how long to fluency. In a way, I think it's not a very productive question.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. That's a question I get a lot here. Normally from friends that their English level is basically 0, and they say, well, how long will it take? I really need to learn. How long will it take? And I say, if you start like that, you're already starting at the worst possible way that you can, because as I say to them again, it needs to become part of your life. You can't expect just to, 1 hour a week, read a book, and then in 6 months be fluent.
Exactly. And the other problem too is that people, when they think of this issue of time, they do tend to think of months and years, but it's really more about the hours.
Sure.
So people don't think of, how many hours. I never get asked that. How many hours do I need to be fluent?
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah.
It's always how many months. Is it, are you doing English 1 hour a day or 10? Because it's a big difference.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Yeah. Of course. And there's obviously different definitions of what fluent actually is in a language. So it's a very, very difficult question.
It is tricky because some people, you say fluent, they think you're almost a native speaker. And then others, exactly. What's that guy's name? Benny Lewis, who it's just basically you can sort of get by. And so,
sure.
and then anything in between. So it's really tricky. I think that I've seen, however, with my students and the members of my website, the people who have the greatest success in the shortest time are the ones who are just super excited and enthusiastic. They just love the process of it. They're just enjoying it. They just get excited about, maybe it's movies, maybe it's TV, maybe it's books, maybe it's podcasts, but they just really get excited about it. And they're not thinking about, I got to get this score on this test, or how many months do I have to keep doing this?
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing I always try and encourage people to do things that you enjoy doing in your normal language, and then obviously take that and then do that in English, basically. So as you said, if you like podcasts, listen to podcasts. If you like watching films, watch films. If you like reading books, read books, for example.
Exactly. The World Cup's coming up, so I'm trying to encourage all of my fans to just, try to start reading about the World Cup in English. Watch some games, see if you can get commentary in English. There's tons of it out there. I mean, it's all over.
Absolutely, yeah. That was actually my next point, because I'm a big football fan. I saw that you've been wearing your Japan shirt and encouraging people to sort of use English via football and things like this. I will actually be doing some podcasts about football during the World Cup, because as I said, I'm a big fan. But so tell me about Japan. Do you know what their chances are? I know Kagawa, does he still play for them?
The chances are, I think they're ranked 62 is what I saw in the world. So I'd say their chances are low.
I'm sure their chances are higher than England's.
What group is England in?
I can't remember the letter, but we're in a group with Belgium that are a good side, Tunisia, and the last one I can't remember. I think we're in the last group though, whatever letter that is.
Okay, yeah. Japan's got Poland and Colombia.
Okay,
and what's the other team? Morocco? No, that's they're with Egypt. Senegal.
Oh, right. Oh, they're quite a good team. And so in Japan, is it do people really follow football? I don't know.
I'd say for team sports, it's number 2. Baseball's number 1.
Really? Baseball in Japan? I did not know that at all.
Huge here. Yeah.
Really?
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's the number 1 team sport. I whenever I go for walks and I go by all the parks, all the kids are out playing baseball. Tons of
really?
Kids teams. They're really good too.
Really? I don't know why. Maybe just because I'm an idiot. I don't know, but I did not know that at all and did not expect it.
Yeah, they're one of the best teams in the world. There's sort of this new thing, well, somewhat new. In the last 15 years, I think they have a kind of World Cup for baseball. They call it the Baseball Classic. And I think Japan won the first one. They've won it at least once. So they're one of the top teams in the world.
Interesting. Well, as I always say on this show, every day is a school day. You learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks a lot for your time, AJ, for sharing with us about your book, podcast, and obviously speaking about the World Cup. So just let us know, how can we find out more about you? Where can we find you?
Oh, sure. You can just go to my website. It's effortlessenglishclub.com, Effortless English Club. And if you go to the blog, you'll see all my free stuff.
Okay, fantastic. We love free stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
Anyway, so thanks again for your time, AJ, and I hope to hear from you soon.
Great talking to you. Thank you.
You too. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Okay, so that was me speaking to AJ from Effortless English. As I said, it was a really interesting conversation. I loved the technique of getting yourself into like a mental state before speaking English. It's definitely something worth trying because there is no one method that 100% works for these things. You have to experiment, so please try and experiment. I'm certainly going to do it, so you try as well. Remember to go and find AJ. If you put Effortless English into Google, all of the main social media channels, you will find him. So I hope you enjoyed the bonus show and learned something. Remember, we always need to try and learn something every day, baby. Oh yeah, thanks a lot for listening. I'll see you all again on Monday. In the meantime, just keep on rocking, people.
Thanks so much for listening to Rock and Roll English. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit rockandrollenglish.com and facebook.com/rockandrollenglish. We'll catch you next time.